Welcome to another very dry and technical study on the doctrines of the fourth kingdom of Daniel and Antichrist. Now I realize that very few people will listen to this kind of message, and I accept that. But I make no apologies for the fact that these messages are dry, technical, and not for everyone. Yet it is the very material that the institutional churches of America need to learn and teach. But they won't. They're steeped in dispensationalism, fantasy, and futurism, and actually sitting down and studying the details of history, church history, the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, the emergence of papal Rome, and things like that, they're not going to do that. And this type of study gets ignored. That is unfortunate, but it's a reflection of the state and mentality of the institutional churchgoers of America today. They want to be entertained, they want to believe things that are fantastic and unscriptural, and they want to listen to a man at the front telling them what they want to hear. If you're one of those people, this isn't for you. This is for the serious student of Bible prophecy and Bible doctrine. I'll be continuing my study of John Gill's interpretation of Antichrist and the Fourth Kingdom from the perspective of the book of Daniel, and I'll be using John Gill's commentary as a guide. So far I've established that historically, Antichrist did in fact emerge from the Roman Empire, was an aspect of the Roman Empire, was a dynasty, and continues to this very day. And that was the teaching of the Reformers. Antichrist was not a singular event, not something that happened in a phony rebuilt temple at the end of the age, was miraculously revealed in a very short period of time, in which he conquered the entire world, changed every system on earth, and set himself up as God in this fake temple. It's a bit much to believe, and it's not scriptural. It's all fantasy. It's a Jesuit doctrine originally conceived by the Jesuit priest Ribera. Let's get on with the study now. To listen to my entire series on Antichrist and Daniel's Fourth Kingdom, based on John Gill's commentary, subscribe to my Patreon channel, www.patreon.com/Reginald Jacob Block. Paul in 2 Thessalonians, starting in chapter 2, verse 6, writes, "And now ye know what withholdeth or hinders the revelation of the man of sin or Antichrist, by which is not meant the Apostle Paul, though he by his ministry was a very great hindrance to the growth of error and the spread of evil practices in the church, and so of the more open appearance of the man of sin in his forerunners, and after his departure from Ephesus and imprisonment at Rome, and suffering death, there was a great falling off in the churches and among professors of religion, which made way for the manifestation of Antichrist in due time, nor the preaching of the gospel in its power and purity in several parts of the world. Though so long as this obtained, got ground, and gained success, the man of sin could not show his head, and therefore it must, as it did, decline, and was gradually taken away, that he might appear, nor the Spirit of God, as the Spirit of truth and holiness, though as long as he continued in his gifts and operations of grace in the churches, they were preserved from anti-Christian doctrine and worship." Here Gill is saying, the restrainer is none of the things that false teachers commonly thought. The restrainer was not Paul, the restrainer was not the preaching of the gospel, and the restrainer was not the Holy Spirit. That's not what Paul taught, that's not what John taught his pupils, and most certainly, in the writings of Irenaeus, that is not taught either. Gill goes on to say, "But when he removed from them his enemy and adversary of Christ, and his gospel came in like a flood, nor the general defection in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3, though that was to be previous to the revelation of Antichrist, and was to be what would usher him in. nor could he appear until the wickedness of men was come to a pitch, that they would be ready to receive him, and pay homage and worship to him. Nor is the decree of God meant, though till the time came fixed by God for his appearance. The decree must be a bar in his way. Since as there is a time for every purpose, nothing can come to pass till that time comes. But by that which withheld, let, or hindered the open appearance of Antichrist were the Roman Empire and emperors. These stood in his way. And while this empire lasted, and the emperors wore the imperial crown, and sat on the throne and held the government in their hands, the popes could not come at the height of their ambition, dignity, and authority, nor shine in their glory, nor could the whore of Babylon take her seat and sit upon the 7 hills of Rome, until the Roman emperor was taken out of the way. So here John Gill makes it very clear. The Roman Empire was hindering the revelation of Antichrist, not the church, not the preaching of the gospel, and not the Holy Spirit, but in fact the Roman Empire and the Caesars, who needed to be removed from their place, that Antichrist might take that place, but in a more diverse and all-encompassing way. Gill then writes, "This therefore hindered that he might be revealed in his time." The Ethiopic version reads it, "until his time appointed came. Wherefore, till the time that God had fixed for the appearance of this monster of iniquity, this son of perdition, the Roman Empire must continue, and the Roman emperors must keep their place and dignity to prevent his appearance sooner." The reason why the apostle expresses this not in plain words, but in an obscure manner, and with so much caution, was that he might not offend the Roman emperors, and provoke them to a severe persecution of them as seditious persons that sought the destruction of the empire. The word here used, which is rendered withholdeth or letteth, as in the next verse, signifies a ruler or governor, and answers to the Hebrew word to keep back or restrain, and which is used of kings, who by their laws and government restrain and withhold people from doing what they would. See to which the apostle, who well understood the Hebrew language, doubtless had references, so is rendered a magistrate in Judges 18 verse 7. So there we have John Gill's understanding and interpretation of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 6, that the withholder was the Roman Empire. And this is the very doctrine taught by the early church. One only need read the writings of the early church fathers. Gill moves on to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 7. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work, or the mystery of the wicked one, as the Syriac meaning either Antichrist himself and the spirit of Antichrist, which were already in the world. Gill references 1 John chapter 2 verse 18. John makes it very clear in that verse. Antichrist is already in the world, both spiritually and physically. In fact, John says that Antichrist went out from among them. This is the substitute for Christ, teaching doctrines that substitute themselves and other doctrines for those of the doctrines of Christ. Gill says, mystery being one of the names of Antichrist, and he references Revelation chapter 17 verse 5. And anciently this word was engraven on the mitres of the popes of Rome, or the evil doctrines and practices of Antichrist may be intended. For as the doctrine of the gospel is called a mystery, and the mystery of godliness, so the doctrines and practices of Antichrist may be called the mystery of iniquity, especially as they were now secretly spread, imbibed, and practiced. The foundations of it were now laying in the church by false teachers. For errors and heresies of every sort respecting the person and offices of Christ, and in opposition to them, were now broached. Idolatry and holding communion with idolaters now obtained. Worshipping of angels was used by some, and superstition, and will worship, Worship after the commandments of men were practiced. Days and months and years distinguished by Jews and pagans, and difference of meats were observed. Celibacy and virginity began to be admired and commended. Dominion and majesty were despised, and church authority contemned. And many, as Diotrephes, loved to have the preeminence. And the doctrine of justification by works of the law was industriously spread, and zealously preached and received, all which laid the foundation and are the life and soul of popery. Gill carries on, only he who now letteth will let, until he be taken out of the way, that is, the Roman Empire and Roman emperors, and which were by degrees entirely removed, and so made way for the revelation of this wicked one, and which was done partly by Constantine the emperor receiving the Christian faith, whereby the Roman Empire as pagan ceased, and by increasing the riches of the church, and feeding the pride, ambition, and covetousness of the bishops, especially the Bishop of Rome, and next by removing the seat of the empire from Rome to Byzantium, which he called Constantinople. Here the Greek emperors continued in succession, and neither they themselves, nor even their exarchs, resided at Rome, but at Ravenna. To listen to my entire series on Antichrist and Daniel's Fourth Kingdom, based on John Gill's commentary, subscribe to my Patreon channel, www.patreon.com/Reginald Jacob Block. Many thanks.